Welcome everyone to a Girls Who Start Zoom chat, and we're so excited to have all of you. And the Girls Who Start mission is to inspire middle school, high school, and college girls to become entrepreneurs and leaders. And basically, we do this by showcasing female leaders like Jeni and talking about their journeys. And we have over 30 chapters at middle schools, high schools, and colleges across the country and internationally. And if you're interested in starting a chapter, or you know someone who may be interested in starting a chapter, feel free to reach out through our website or Instagram, which I will type in the chat in a moment. And I'm so excited for our speaker today, Jeni, and I'm going to pass it on to Brielle to introduce her.
Hi, everyone. Thank you all for joining. So Jeni Britton Bauer is an American ice cream explorer. A pioneer of the artisan ice cream movement, she introduced a modern, ingredient-driven style of ice cream making that has been widely emulated across the world, but never duplicated. Jeni opened her first Jeni's Splendid ice creams in 2002, since growing the company to 39 scoop shops nationwide. She won the coveted James Beard Award in 2012 for her first cookbook, Jeni's Splendid Ice Creams at Home, a New York Times bestseller. She has been recognized by Fast Company as one of the most creative people in business today. Jeni is also a 2017 Henry Crown Fellow. As founder and chief creative officer, Jeni remains the beating heart of the company and is in charge of all the creative output, from the ice cream itself to the supporting details that enhance the experience of eating it. Ariel is now going to ask Jeni some questions, and then we will open it up to the group for questions. And just a reminder to everyone, we will be recording this meeting.
Hi, Jeni. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you. It's so great to be with you all.
And so my first question for you is, how did you come up with the idea for Jeni's ice cream?
So the thing is, I always tell people that, I was kind of lucky that I did not have parents in my life back when I was just out of high school and in college who told me that I had to focus on one thing. That was huge for me, because what I ended up doing is just studying everything that interested me at Ohio State University, which was everything from vampire folklore to art history, a lot of fine arts. I was taking a lot of art and thinking I was maybe gonna get a fine arts degree. And because I was doing all these things that interested me, I found ice cream. So I was also working at a French pastry company. I fell in love with the family that owned that. They were French, and the whole, I was like one of two people that worked there that weren't French. And I met a guy who was Parisian who was studying perfuming in the chemistry department. And so I started thinking about scent in art. And all of that stuff comes together when I start making ice cream at home, because I realized that ice cream is a great carrier of scent, which is a little bit of a weird jump to make, except that I was studying all those things. And I realized that even like an inexpensive vanilla ice cream, a synthetic fake vanilla, is still almost like an edible perfume. It's all scent. Everything else is like, you get sweet, sour, bitter, salty. Those are the only things you can taste on your tongue. Everything else in flavor is a scent. Chocolate, peppermint, coffee, strawberries. And once I realized the power of scent, that was what changed everything for me. And so I quit school within like 6 months, maybe less, maybe in 6 weeks I quit school, literally walked out of art class in the middle of it, and opened in a farmer's market a few months later, just me and a machine and a little dipping cabinet and all the makers and growers in the market. And that was in 1996, very long time ago. But I've never really worked for anybody else besides my bakery job, and I worked at an ice cream shop when I was in high school. Otherwise, it's just been this one solid adventure for the last million years, feels like.
And so that kind of leads me to my next question. And so I'm wondering, a lot of people have ideas and never do anything with them. What really spurred you to start your idea?
So I think that I grew up with an artist grandmother and mother, and a lot of doers in my family, kind of counterculture, sort of just always questioning authority, always questioning everything. And so we were idea people. I mean, that was the thing we did every day after school, is just discovery. That's why I call myself an explorer. It's sort of like, let's just see what happens today and like keep pushing forward. I think the way that I kind of learned to do it, and the way that I realized, and looking back on my life, that kind of works, is that ideas are sort of almost worth nothing. Like we all have them every day, all the time. And in fact, they're probably worth less than nothing because they're a distraction from the stuff that you know is actually worth something that you are doing, right? You get carried away. Now, I'm a daydreamer, so definitely make sure that you keep daydreaming because that's the best. But it is a distraction, and unless you can put it into action. And the way that you get it to action is you daydream. You daydream it sort of out into the future, and you create a vision around it, right? So you take this idea, you think about it, you create a vision around it. What does the world look like when this idea is actually realized? And now all of a sudden you have this thing that you can start marching toward, right? So I was imagining, wait a second, American ice cream is like all candy. That's totally fine, and it's delicious in its own way. But what about really good chocolate? What about really good vanilla? What about the idea of scent in ice cream? Can we change the standard of ice cream in America? These are the questions I was asking. And once I started to keep projecting that out, then I kind of locked into this idea that we can set the standard for American ice cream. It can be so much better. It can come from the farmer's market. We can work with makers and growers that we know. And that became like my everything, my beacon that I was marching for. Because I could see it so clearly. Now, not every idea you can get that far with. A lot of times it sort of feels like you don't get to see a very big vision. It's sort of like a good idea. It sounds fun, but then when you start projecting it out, it really kind of falls apart. So I think that when you can get to that fully realized vision in your mind and your imagination, and you sort of almost feel it in your heart, and you love it, and you're just like, this is what I need to spend my life doing, then you got to go. Next thing is action.
Yeah, and I love that kind of mindset. That's amazing. And so my next question, I know that you've been successful with fundraising for your company, and what were some of the challenges with that? And also, could you tell us the story about how Charlie had to sign with you for your company?
Yes. So let's see. So I opened Jeni's in 2002. I had another company called Scream Ice Cream from 1996 to 2000. That was the farmer's market. My first go at the farmer's market. I also opened Jeni's in the farmer's market. For Scream, we had just convinced, I had another business partner, and we had convinced her parents to give us a few $1,000s, and then we bought all of our equipment, and that was that. And she didn't work there. She had another little business. Closed that, kind of parted with her. And then to open Jeni's, I went to the bank and got a bank loan through the Small Business Association. And that was great. However, I didn't have a lot of credit built up because I had been working for almost nothing for 4 years at Scream. And so the only way for me to get a loan through the SBA was to have my then boyfriend, Charlie, actually apply with me. And, that's like, not right, I feel like, and hopefully that's changing now, and I get to do some of that policy work now, and I get to think about that and contribute to that, and I think that things are changing a little bit, but maybe not fast enough. But anyway, so we got it after like 6 months of trying to get it, and within 2 weeks of the day that we got approved for the loan, I was open for business. So it's pretty great. I will also say that I convinced a family that I was working for, and they're called the Wrights. And I was babysitting for them actually. And I loved them like my own family. And I convinced them to give me $30,000. I told them, the plan, all that stuff, and they agreed to do it. So they were like, we will give you $30,000, but don't take it. And I was just like, but now what? They were like, don't take the money from us or anyone. Do whatever you can do to hold on to equity in your company. Go to the bank, because when you get a bank loan, you can pay it back and you own the company. And it was really the best advice I'd ever been given. And no one else had given me that advice before. And it was really important because if I had taken the money from them, they would have owned at least half of my company back then. And so that was really great, because we didn't actually take private equity money or any money from anyone else but the bank and SBA, which we paid back. We didn't take any other money until 2016. So a lot longer. So we got to hold on to all of that ownership, which ended up being really important.
And so adding on to that, what have been some of the high and low points of running and starting your company?
Well, starting and, well, let's just say being a founder, being an entrepreneur is a roller coaster. It is high highs and low lows. There's no like, you're never on a plateau. It is never the same day twice, ever. As soon as it starts to feel like a little bit like you kind of get it, the bottom drops out. Every founder I know sort of feels that way. The thing about being a founder is that we can surround ourselves with really awesome people who really know their stuff. Chief finance officers, even a CEO or a chief marketing officer. And these people have been trained, they've worked in other places, they kind of know what they're doing and they can bring it in with this expertise. But as a founder, every time you're growing, you have to kind of relearn the level that you're on. You have to kind of keep up with your team and your company. And it takes a lot to keep doing that. You kind of always have to earn your team, or else they just become, they're just end up being better than you at all of it, you know? And so you kind of have to keep up with that if you want to be relevant in your company. And it's a constant battle to do that. As a company, you know, when I look back on how hard it was for me to figure out what permit I needed, and it is confusing, back in 2002, 2003, 4, or how to build a website, how to put together a website in 2004 when we launched that, I get like heart palpitations because it's like PTSD. Like it was so hard for me to figure that out. But when I think about the problems that we face now, and the scale is just so different, you know, that those kinds of little things are so small, you know? And so it's almost like you just keep challenging yourself as you go. You kind of get used to having, I guess you get used to the perspective that every entrepreneur has is the bottom of the mountain looking up, right? You're always at the bottom of some next mountain. And that's just kind of the thing about it. But I will say, like, you know, if you're lucky enough to be in business long enough, you're going to have a very big crisis. And we had a huge crisis in 2015 when we found a pint with listeria in it. Listeria is something that you do not know. Food maker wants to get the call that you have that. Listeria is natural. It is in the air. It's in the dirt. It's in strawberries when you get them directly from farmers, as we do. It's in sweet corn, which we get from farmers. All of that. It's very hard to prevent, and you've got to be in constant battle and war with it, no matter, you know, what kind of food producer you are, even if you're a restaurant. So luckily it wasn't in any more pints, but we ended up recalling all of our ice creams. And that means just we brought it all back. We threw it all out. We actually made energy out of it. So we put it into an anaerobic digester and turned it into energy. But at that moment, we had to kind of rebuild our company. And my only, I think, the sort of point to making sure that you guys hear that from me, that story from me, is that this kind of moment is actually a moment for you to prove yourself, to prove who you actually are to yourself and to your team, and your team to sort of prove who they are to each other. Your values are sort of forged in fire during crisis, and what you come out of, if you survive, is actually so much stronger than who you were when you went into it. And so while I wouldn't wish crisis on anyone, not my deepest enemy, not that I have any enemies, but you know, it's actually the best thing that can happen to you. So remember that if you ever get into something that's really just terrible, it feels horrible, remember that you will come out of it, and most likely be better company and a person afterward.
I think that's great advice. And so now what I'm really wondering is, how do you come up with all these cool flavors, and what are some of your favorites that you've developed?
Well, so I still developed and created every recipe that we've had at Jeni's. Every single ice cream that we've ever made at Jeni's has come from me. And it's not because now I'm like, I want everybody to bring in flavor ideas and things like that. But the truth is that I'm out in the world so often, less so in 2020. But I'm just on the road constantly. And when I'm on the road, when I go to a new city, whether it's to visit an ice cream shop or to do a speech or something like that, I always do a few things. I go talk to all of the emerging entrepreneurs, especially women and minority, and some people who are sort of just like coming out, you know, Main Street entrepreneurs, true Main Street entrepreneurs. I go meet as many of those people as I possibly can, because I just get really inspired by their stories and by the things that they sell. And I always go home with a really full backpack or suitcase. I go to art museums if there's an art museum or a history museum in a city. And even if I'm busy, I can get through a history museum or an art museum in a half an hour if that's all I've got. And I just feel like getting a sense of the place that I'm in is really important. It's part of like, I think this whole thing is emotional. I think entrepreneurship is emotional. I think building flavors is emotional. It all for me comes from a place of service. And so I'm serving others. And so learning about other people, especially when it comes to history, but I think of art, I studied art. So I see art as time travel and a connection to people. And so for me, that's how I do it. And then bringing that back, then it's just combining it with what makers and growers and producers we've got on our, available this year. And then, we get to work in our test kitchen, trying out the ideas that I've brought back or that I've put forward. And then usually it starts with like 15 and we end up with 5.
For my next question, I'm wondering how the coronavirus has affected your company.
Well, it's affected us greatly, like every other hospitality and every other, really just almost every other company out there. I mean, unless you're in like the toilet paper industry or something like that. But we are lucky because somehow we had just figured out local delivery and put it onto our website right as coronavirus was the pandemic was hitting, which means that we didn't have to pay the fees that DoorDash and Uber Eats and some of those are charging, which can be like 30-35%. It's huge. I mean, it just negates any profit that you could possibly make on it. It actually ends up costing money sometimes. So we had just moved that to our website, which was huge because now all of a sudden delivery becomes everything. So we could pivot in our stores to do just delivery. We could pivot and make a menu that just served delivery. And that helped so much. Stores are still down a lot. For our company, that might be like 30%, which is huge. That's not survivable as a company. But we're lucky because we can make up for that in our grocery business, which just happens to be at this year. We just happened to go global with Whole Foods last year. And, if this has happened 3 years ago, it wouldn't have been the same. So we have that. And then we have our website, and we're very good at shipping ice cream. It's our biggest store. So we're really good at that. And so people just pivoted from our store to our website and to grocery stores, and that helped make up for the loss. So for us, we're doing okay. We did not take PPP money. We're doing okay. We're still going to lose money by the end of the year, but we're not going to, we're going to survive. I'm doing a lot of work with many, many other small businesses that are in much more dire places. And there's a lot more work that we are going to have to do as a country to support our favorite, whoever your favorite business entrepreneur founder is, especially if, I just really try to buy clothes from women makers, and I really am aware of who I'm buying from, because every dollar you spend is supporting someone or something. And so I think that is really important for us as we go into next year.
Yeah, for sure. That's really great. And so in Girls Who Start, we talk a lot about showcasing female leaders and having women to look up to. And so I'm wondering, who are some of your mentors that you look up to?
Well, when I was coming up, I'm kind of when I was coming up in my business, all of the other that I had in my community, and that's Columbus, Ohio. And even like, we didn't have social media the same that it is now. So all of the other like women leaders in my community were people that I didn't relate to as much, right? So it was like, I would say they were like wearing shoulder pads and pantyhose or whatever. It was just like more of a business mind sort of. And I think now we have a lot more sort of entrepreneurs, creative entrepreneurs, women who are not just in the business world, which is completely awesome and amazing as well, but I didn't have anybody that I like related to. So I looked to film and TV and books. So I was looking at like Ray Eames, who's a furniture designer from the middle of the century, and her husband and her Charles and Ray Eames are sort of famous for the furniture that they made. And I just think she's really creative and really awesome. I look at women like Katharine Hepburn from the old movies, who's super strong, wore the most awesome pants. I just think she's awesome at a time when women really mostly wore dresses. And I just look at her strength, and I was really moved by that. And I think that that you can kind of look and incorporate the things that you're seeing from people you admire, and sort of try them on and see if they work for you, and then it sort of gives you strength to keep going. So I really am a person of imagination, and just love to look at all those other women out there doing amazing things.
That's amazing. And so looking forward, what are some of your hopes and dreams for your company in the future?
Well, I mean, I love the idea of growing and continuing to challenge ourselves. You know, one of the things as a founder, the thing that you have to do in every company at some point, not the first thing you have to do, because it takes a little while, a few years really to fully understand what's possible within the realm of what you know you can do and what you're doing. But once you figure out what's possible, what you're doing, what you're here for, to get it written down, right? And to set it in stone in your company. So I have created this sort of mission, this idea of fellowship that we do at Jeni's. It's like actually from Lord of the Rings. It's just kind of dorky, but like Tolkien, I love big Tolkien and sci-fi fantasy fan. So like I think of fellowship as everybody brings their awesomeness in, and together we make something greater than the sum of its parts. It's literally like the Fellowship of the Ring, where there's, you know, all different kinds of people. And so this idea of diversity on every level in our company is really important. So all of my ideals are in the company and they're kind of baked in. I've been really vocal about those over the years, so that no matter what happens, somebody, you know, no matter how much money they have, they can't come in and just change that. Because if you change that, you change the whole dynamic of this company, and all of our customers will notice that. And I think that's really important. So as I look into the future, I hope, and I know I will be able to be very proud of this company as we go. And if we can just keep growing with the same sort of set of values that we have, and the ethos that we have, and the quality, which can only get better, it'll be really fun. So I don't know where that means. It might mean someday we have a store in Paris, which would be really cool, but I have no idea. Right now it's survive 2020, and then keep growing in America, which is so great. And hopefully we'll have lots of chances to serve ice cream in America and help bring people together over the next couple of years.
Great. And so for my last question, what advice do you have for girls or any young people, or really anyone who are interested in starting something?
The way that I always say it is start small and build. Start small and build. Just start now. I want to be kind of, this is one perspective, but it's a perspective of a lot of it's when I look at the founders that I know, this is kind of how they feel. There are other ways of being a founder. You can, there's just all sorts of entrepreneurs in the world. But when I think of entrepreneurship, and the way that I think about it is very different and divided from business. The idea of business is more of like a structure of disciplines, right? Business is like stuff you can learn, like HR, finance, law, there's all these things, and you can bring people in who are experts at those things. You're going to need them around you. So you can kind of just learn the basics of finance, or the very, very basic. You don't have to learn very much about that. What you should do really is to focus on community, creativity. Like, how much will somebody, if I make something really cool, like if I love skateboarding, then I should be the next person to create the next skateboard, right? And so how can I improve this? Whatever it is that you're doing, whatever it is that you're learning in science class or out skateboarding, like, how can I make this better? How can I use what I learned today to make something better? And if I did that, would somebody pay me for it? And if they paid me for it, could I then reinvest the money and keep growing? And so the idea is just start small, start with an idea and build. Worry more about your product and your customers. Everything else will fall into place. So anybody who wants to force you into learning business before you get your customers and your your skateboard built or whatever, I just think you waste time. I think that the important thing is to worry about the thing that lights you up, that fires you up, that gives you passion, and that better than anybody else. And then do that, figure that out, and then you can start to slowly learn about business. There's a lot of places you can learn about that. You can learn about enough business in just one book. You do not have to go to school for it,
Great. Well,
start small and build.
Much,
That's
Jeni.
the thing.
Thank you so much. And so I'm now going to open it up for a Q&A. So feel free to ask any questions you may have for Jeni in the chat box, and I'll just read them out loud. And also, in the interest of time, we may not get to everyone's questions, but we'll try our best. So our first question from Justin, what do you do to prioritize in your daily life to maximize efficiency and productivity?
So I don't really do that. Trying not to laugh, because this is like the opposite of me. I have a lot of entrepreneur friends who are very into into that. I am much more of a, if it feels good, it is good. If I feel like doing it, it's the right thing, and then I can reflect on it and keep going. So I would just say that that I'm a doer by nature. So I'm a high output person already. Maybe I don't have to like force myself to do that because I just I work hard and I work efficiently already. Part of the way that I do things though is thinking and daydreaming. So I never like worry about if I just like have a day where my brain isn't working, but it's like imagining and dreaming. I don't get hard on myself if I don't get stuff done because of that. Like I let it go because I love that so much, and it actually ends up becoming ideas later. So I'm a kind of go with the flow sort of person. Get on the river, get on the surfboard, and just see what happens today. Obviously, I have a schedule and I have things I have to get done, and I have deadlines and things like that as well. But I just have a way of doing it where it's almost like the thing that's boiling up the loudest is the thing that I'm worried about right now, and it works for me. But so I will also say that I think when I was growing up, I was probably ADHD. I would probably have any number of learning disorders. I mean, I barely got by in school. So I'm just a different kind of learner and doer. You know what I mean? I'm very much a doer. And I've used that to my advantage in what I'm doing. I probably wouldn't be able to work for somebody else.
So Eva asked, I noticed you partnered with Tyler, the Creator, recently. How did that come out? And how did that kind of start?
Well, I love Tyler. Tyler was a big fan of ours. He reached out a couple of years ago, and that was really great. And wanted to do a flavor. He rides his bike over to our Los Feliz shop in LA, and the moment I met him, I actually flew to LA because I just had to get a sense of like who he was and what he wanted to do. And I brought him all these ice creams that I had made of like single note flavors so that I could get to understand what he wanted. But the moment I walked in, well, actually when I walked in, I could see him sort of crouching in the corner with his hat way down, kind of like not knowing who this person was that was about to walk into his life. And but as soon as like I started talking about flavor as notes, because it's really what it is. We think of flavor as like notes, just like music in a way, and even things like percussion when you have like something crunchy in the ice cream. As soon as that happened, Tyler and I just opened up and started speaking almost in like a shorthand. And everyone around us saw it happening, and we were just like, we have to do something together, because it was just like when you get people who think, I think like creative thinking happens almost in the spiritual realm. I know that sounds so weird, and I mean, it's just like, you just get to this emotional place that is off the ground. It's off earth. And that was where we were connecting. And so if you look at the two flavors that we've done, we actually talk about meeting out in the cosmos somewhere, out in the ethereal sort of place, because that's how it feels. You're really like at just in this place of creation. And it was just super fun. He is just a wonderful person and a true creative person. And he's been surrounded by people in his life who support that. And I think maybe the one thing that I learned from Tyler that I really, 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 really value, and as much as I value him, is the people who are around him and how they support him. Because if you are a creative person, and we all are, we all are creative in various ways. But if you have people who support you in your life, you soar. You can make mistakes, you learn from them quickly, you get back up, and then that fuels the next thing. If you don't have people if you have people who don't support you, you just sort of flounder. I mean, the support system is so important. And he has a really good one. And they're very small. It's like 3 or 4 people around him, and that's it. And they're very loving. And I just thought that was amazing.
Yeah, that's really amazing. And our next question is from Sloan. She asked, how do you ensure your allergen-friendly flavors, like your dairy-free ice creams, are safe for consumers with allergies to eat?
Well, we have a whole system of how we do that, and I'll get it wrong. But first, it starts in production. And how we do that. And so on an allergy day, we don't make anything else. And there's a whole protocol that we go through in terms of cleaning and sanitizing and doing testing and all of that in the equipment, so that we know that it's completely free of any allergen. And then from there, it's sealed. When it gets to our store, we can do a whole bunch of things. I mean, everything from, if you need us to open a pint and scoop from a fresh pint, we will do that for you. like what, open up a fresh scooper that's literally never been used. We will do that for you. Just whatever you need is what we do. I mean, so everybody's allergies we found, or intolerances, or all, there's a whole range of things that everybody's sort of different. And we'll do whatever we can. Of course, we have a peanut butter flavor. Some of those allergens actually can be air, bound or whatever. And so there are some things that we can't do. Like we have a peanut butter flavor, and if you're super, super, super allergic to peanut butter, you might not be able to have anything in our store. But for the most part, we try to get to as many people as possible. We try to do gluten-free in every recipe, unless it really doesn't work. Like right now, we were almost able to do it with our waffle cones, but we couldn't, because in the South they get really spongy and not great. So we'll get there eventually. Sugar is another one that's really, really, really hard, because sugar doesn't freeze the same way as other ingredients. And so it actually keeps the ice cream kind of soft when you scoop it. And there's no substitute for sugar that does that, except for some other chemicals that just don't taste good, and they're not very good right now. So we're constantly kind of pushing forward and working and doing the best we can with that. But the first thing we want to do is just keep people safe. And that's something I think we're very good at in our stores, and definitely in production.
Great. So Olivia has asked, how did you advertise your brand to expand it so large?
Word of mouth is the way I would say that. Word of mouth is the most powerful by far. And you guys, a lot of times we can learn these things by asking ourselves, like, how do I respond? Like, where am I? What, like, when I buy something new, why did I buy that? Right? It's usually because somebody turned you on to some, whatever it was, some store or lipstick or whatever it is. Almost never do you see like an advertisement that you've never heard of before and then go buy it. I mean, now and then I've done that on Instagram, but rarely. And so word of mouth is really, really important. And so that's where it gets back to like knowing your customers, caring deeply about them, making things that you think that they're going to love, listening. So in case they don't, then you just get rid of that, move on, make something else, listen, so that you're really trying to make people happy, but also doing the things that you love and that you're here to do. I mean, you can't just make only things that people want, because you would only make, in my case, I would only make cookies and cream, chocolate chip, chocolate, strawberry, and vanilla, right? Sometimes we have to push people to new things as well. And so it's important to do that. And then for us, when like social media really got started, I mean, we were emailing, we had a website from 2004, but when social media really got started, that we thought of as service, just customer service. And so how can we inspire people the same way we do over the counter? You can't eat our ice cream through social media, but what else can we do? Can we show you a window in on what we're doing? Can we be creative and have fun? Can we answer all of your questions? And so we do that as well. And that's been huge for us too.
Vera asked, do you own 100% of your business? Also, ice cream is definitely a very emotional thing. So what was your experience with customer acquisition when you started your business?
Yeah, no, I do not own 100% of my company. I have many business partners. I mean, not many, but several, and they're great, and they've helped. So what happens is, once you get sort of too big for the bank to give you money, because you get a little more risky, then most companies move to something like private equity, which is and they're just they'll take a little bit more risk and give you a little bit more money. And so that was good. You want to be very careful when you move into that realm, because private equity people and the whole money world really does take advantage of business. So it took us 18 months, I think maybe 2 years, to find the right company for us. And that work was really, really important. So and they all seem good on the outside. So it was good to have that process in place. And remind me the question about customer acquisition.
Yes, it says, what was your experience with customer acquisition when you started your business?
Oh, so I'm, again, back to start small and build. I'm so much less sophisticated in that. For me, it was street game. It still is. It's literally like I'm out on the road. We're talking to people all the time. So most of it, especially for the first 10 years, was me over the counter talking to people, and those people out talking to people. And then it was emails and things like that. Now we're much more sophisticated. I mean, now we know, Joe Biden tweeted and put on Instagram and Facebook the ice cream the other night, and we had a team on it. We didn't know he was going to do it, but we had a team on it within 30 seconds, and we were able to put ads out and email the next day. And so now we just, we can just, we're just much more sophisticated. But for many, many, many years, it was just me over the counter. And what that does is I learned about customer preferences to the point where it's like second nature to me. I know why you're here. I know pretty much like how, what you want, and what drives that sort of decision. I know that it's 70%. Every time we do a study, like I already know the answers to the studies because I was just there for so long. And that means that I'm really, that makes you just really good at what you do. So that time spent with your customers is not wasted. I know that business seems to move so much faster now, with the Shark Tanks and like, which round of funding are you in, and all of that. It's like so much cooler to say I'm in like the second round of funding or whatever. But actually, like if you don't take funding, that's in my mind even cooler, because then you own 100% of your company. And I did own a lot of that company. My husband was a partner and his brother too, but I owned most of it for a really long time, and that was so great. And then actually when we got into our crisis, it was good to have that equity, because I had to give up some of it to get some money to pay for that. So yeah, anyway, that was digressing.
So our next question is from Emily. She asked, what stage of maturity was your company when you decided to become a certified B Corp in 2013?
These questions are like, they're like business questions. That's great. Stage of maturity, I am not sure. I will say that we were doing B Corp stuff already. And so I want to say it was 2012, but it might've been 14, that we decided to just apply and see if we qualified. And in doing that, we did qualify. And so we were made a B Corp without really doing anything. It was already a part of who we are, our ethos. We're a values-led company. I say we're a community-spirited, values-led company. And so, but what it does, I think what being a B Corp does is that it focuses you, because they expect you to get better every year. And that I think is really cool. So you stay on that journey. And so they give you a number, and every year it has to grow. And I think ours grew by like 20 points or something like that last year, which was incredible. So it's an audit every 2 years, and pretty rigorous. It takes 6 or 8 weeks to get through it.
Margot's question is, what was the thinking behind the 2016 redesign?
Oh, well, that was because we had a recall. And what we did was, what I wanted to do is, after that, who knows if it was the right decision or not, but my thinking behind that was, and there have been a couple of designs, but right after the recall, what we did was I went with white packaging with very simple lettering, because I felt like we had to be super humble. I felt like we had to come back slowly and with an absolute perspective of humility. And so there was that. And then once we did that, that was in like 2016, like late 2015. Then we started working on a more bright, fun packaging. And that was the beginning of what you see now. And that took us several months to do, but we did it all in-house. And we do all of our artwork in-house, because I feel like it's just so much more soulful. And as an ice cream company, I think being soulful is important. It's less important, if you're in another industry, but like creativity, especially because I went to art school, is really important. So we had a lot of fun with it, but we wanted to keep it, from that place of service. Our packaging is actually fun to look at if you want to study it, because it is, it's an exercise in service. It's creativity, but not in sacrificing like functionality. And so in fact, what we did was, like, when you look at our ingredients, the ingredients labels are usually as small as you can put them, or like the nutrition label. Ours are actually as big as we could fit them, because we want you to read them. Anything that's on our pint, we actually want you to read. I mean, there are some things there that are like mandated, like, all the different kinds of ounces and milliliters or whatever. But so it's kind of fun to look at our pint. Every single thing is there because we wanted it to be there. And there's a story, and there's a little flavor description, and then all of our ingredients.
Great. So Nicole has asked, how did you first find out that Biden is such a huge fan of your company? And when he wins, would you create a flavor in his honor or something that he likes? If so, what ideas do you have?
Oh, totally. So I love Joe Biden. I've always loved him. I have a dog named Joe Biden. Joe was was sort of a beacon of hope for me when I was in personal crisis, actually during the 2015 recall that we had in our company. It's just a really difficult thing to go through as a human being, family, and like, in a community. And so he was the person that I was looking to, because he was going through all of his challenges. I mean, just absolute personal tragedy with his son, Bo. And so he kind of kept me going along. I met him shortly thereafter in 2016, and then we've just kept in touch. And so we've been sort of ice cream friends. And I just now sort of know him, and I'm doing many things for the campaign. I have a speech tomorrow that I'm doing, and I've been working and volunteering on the Economic Policy Committee, actually working on policies for small business and entrepreneurship, which has been so cool and so fun, something that I never thought I would get the chance to do, and something I didn't know that I could do, in fact, and chairing those committees, which was really cool. But more than that, I just believe in him as a human being, and as a really, like, a person of integrity, like a national treasure, in this community. And so he's, I think, going to be a great president. Let's hope. I mean, that's my perspective, but yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And I love a president, if he gets to be president. I love a president who loves ice cream so much. So I actually was thinking, can we have the biggest ice cream social in America? Can we have all of the Main Street ice cream shops making ice cream in his favorite flavor, which is some version of chocolate chip? And I thought, we could all get a little bit creative on that. So, we'll see what happens, but yeah, for something.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And so Comedy has asked, how do you appeal to your customers?
Well, we try to listen to people and care, that also means, I think, our first customers in a way are our team who work in our stores. And so treating them with all of the, amazing respect that they deserve, or respect they deserve as amazing people, because they're just wonderful. That's kind of where it starts, because they are really the face that the customer sees. And if they're not excited and inspired by what we're doing, and if they don't feel pride for the work that the company that they work for is up to and doing, then there's no way that our customers are going to come along for that too. And so a lot of times when you go to our stores, you might hear some of the backstory of a flavor or some other anecdote. And that's because, we really do try to operate as a community, is a good way to put it, and keep in touch and have open communication with everybody who works in our company.
Great. And so I think we only have time for 2 more questions. So one of them is from Danny. He asked, have you ever had a flavor that failed, and how did you recover from that, both personally and on the business side?
Well, many flavors fail. It depends on your definition of failure. I've actually argued that our entire business model is about the flavors that aren't the biggest sellers, right? So nobody would have cared about our company if we went to market with just vanilla, chocolate, strawberry, cookies and cream, and caramel. It's because of the other flavors, the sort of exotic flavors, the adventurous flavors, that people come in. And what happens is, I call it the tour guide character. So someone comes into our shop, and the thing about ice cream is that everyone at an ice cream shop, no matter what ice cream shop you're at, you kind of almost identify personally with the flavors of ice cream. So when you pick an ice cream, there's something's personal about it to you. And in doing that, you're actually helping the people you're with get to know you a little bit better. It's a weird thing, but ice cream, more than other things, just does that. And so what will happen in our store is that we get this sort of adventurous, creative, artistic sort of person who I call the tour guide, and they come in and they bring all their friends or their family. But that person, the tour guide, is telling them all about what's going on in the cabinets and whatever. And they're there for the weird one, right? For the weird flavor, for the fun flavor, the adventurous flavor. They're there to get the flavor made with beets or whatever. And if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't get the chance to sell the chocolate to their grandfather, or whatever it is, to the rest of their friends. And so it is kind of an interesting thing when you think about what is in ice cream anyway. What is a success? Because when we think of a blockbuster, you think of a Tyler flavor, or some of the peaches and biscuits that we had out recently, which is so good. But when you think about what drives business, it's actually the ones that aren't selling quite as much. Now, that being said, I have had some real flavor duds that like were just absolutely gross. One of them was called, it's got a great name, it's called Lapsang Souchong with Armagnac prunes. Armagnac is cognac. And so we were basically making a rum raisin, but using prunes, which are like giant raisins, you know? And Lapsang Souchong is a smoked tea, the smoked black tea, and just tastes like campfire. Actually, it tastes like campfire. And so I made this like campfirey ice cream with these prunes in it, and it was just way too campfirey. And the funny thing is, there are two people on Earth who loved it, like to this day, asked me for it, and everyone else just like couldn't handle it. It was pretty awful.
And so for our last question, Emily has asked, have you ever had to sacrifice some of your creative ideas to appeal to the majority of your customers?
Yes, and I think what it is what, so I started out as an artist, or, you know, wanting to be an artist. I was studying art. I left art school. I went and started an ice cream company, and I was thinking like an artist is the only way I'd really been trained to think. And so I was thinking that I could just make all the things that I wanted to every day, and everybody be super excited to see what, you know, what I had in that day. And nobody really was. You know, it took me a long time to realize that actually entrepreneurship is a two-way conversation. You're not an artist. What you bring that to everything you do, but you have to listen to customers. And so it is that two-way, that exchange that you have with people. And so you're putting out the things that you love, that are inspiring to you, you know, however you're coming up with those ideas, whether it's inspired by pop culture or history or color or music or whatever. And you're putting it out there and you're listening to people. But you know, sometimes your ideas just don't work. Or sometimes you have an idea that you really think is going to be great, and for some other reason it's just not feasible, or people on your team think it's not going to work, and you just have to compromise. And I think that is actually just a part of the thing. And so that is the game. So when you're thinking about like bringing it every day to work, when you have a company, when you're a founder, or when you're just in the creative world, or really any world, and no matter what you do, you're sort of bringing in your ideas, you're bringing it all in, and you're not going to get all of them. And so the idea of like compromise is a good one to sort of get used to, I think, especially as a founder, because you'll have a lot of ideas, and that's what's great about you, right? That's what you're supposed to do. You know, it takes 1,000 ideas to do 4, right? Well, and so that's part of just the game, I guess, and the thing.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Jeni, for joining us today. And everyone, please join me in thanking Jeni with sharing her entrepreneurial journey with us today.
Thank you all so much. This was really fun, and I just wish you the best. I think entrepreneurship is so much fun, and anyone can do it. You can start now, and start small and build.
Thank you. And thanks everyone for joining us for another Girls Who Start Zoom conference. And make sure to follow Jeni's Ice Cream on Instagram, and also follow us on Instagram, and check out our website to be updated on any upcoming events this fall.
And I'm Jeni Britton Bauer, and I also on Instagram, and I love chatting with people. So you can also email me, Jeni@jennies.com. I love talking to young entrepreneurs. So.
And just a reminder to everyone, if you want to start a chapter, go to the Girls Who Start website, or just reach out. And thank you again, Jeni, for speaking with us today.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Jeni.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you so much.
Bye, guys.